Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 155 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I am your host, Mike Ayalon. I'm the CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and the author of the book, From Letters to Leaders, Creating Impact on Your College Campus and Beyond. Fun fact, both of my parents were from another country before moving to the United States, and all three of their children joined Greek organizations in college. My sister Sharon joined Alpha Phi at the University of Albany, and my sister Ruth joined Delta Phi Epsilon at Rochester Institute of Technology. So how about that? That's a 3 for 3. So we call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together to talk about what's happening on college campuses today. After you listen to this podcast episode, you are going to learn how to push past your fear of failure. We're going to talk about ways to unlock the potential of other fraternity and sorority members in your chapter and on your campus, as well as ways to engage on social media. To tell us all about it is Lauren Beane. She lives in Raleigh, North Carolina with her husband and a very spoiled Boston Terrier. Her guilty pleasures include reality shows paired with a tall glass of wine, and she is now on a mission to share what she has learned, failures and all, to inspire others to overcome their fear of failure in pursuit of the goals and the life that they dream of. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Hey there, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I know this is going to be so much fun. I am so happy that you're joining us today. I read about you all, online, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It's a really good match for our college students that are listening right now, because I think they experience this fear of failure all the time. The reality is, even the successful ones, they have this fear of failure as well. Yeah. That is something I think that college students need to take with them. So let's find out a little bit of background about you, Lauren. You chose NC State for your undergraduate experience. So what made NC State the right choice for you?
Yeah, so it's funny. I actually grew up in Illinois up until about early middle school. And my mom was from North Carolina, and she never went to NC State, but her whole family went to NC State. So my grandfather, his brothers and sisters, my aunts all went to NC State. So even though I grew up in Illinois, I grew up wearing red and white. So when I was trying to decide for colleges, I was debating. We lived in North Carolina when I was starting to search for colleges, and I toured other schools. I was adamant. I was like, I'm going to forge my own path. I'm going to choose my own thing. But I came back to NC State. And I really think it was just when I stepped on that campus, it felt like home to me. It was very down to earth. And since this is the Fraternity Foodie Podcast, they have a creamery on campus and they make their own ice cream. And it is the best ice cream I have ever had. So that was definitely a perk that kind of swayed me towards NC State as well.
See, it's a good thing I didn't go to NC State, because I'd be 300 pounds. I would be at the creamery every single day. That sounds amazing.
I was. It was very good ice cream.
I bet it was. And you joined Kappa Delta at NC State. So what was special about the sisters at Kappa Delta?
Yeah, so when I was going through recruitment, you hear about all the values of these different sororities. And one thing that I had struggled with a lot growing up, and especially when I went in, going from a small town to this really big campus, I had always struggled with confidence, of believing in myself, trusting my instincts and my skills. And one thing that really stood out to me when I was going through the recruitment process is Kappa Delta. One of their main core values is confidence. And I loved that it was a group of women that were empowering other women to be their best selves, to instill confidence in others. And even to, younger generations too, of letting them know that like you can be confident and be bold about what you're pursuing. So that's really what connected me to them. Was I loved their confidence platform that they stood on, and it really resonated with me.
I love it. When I start thinking about NC State and Kappa Delta, I start thinking about Mindy Sofer, one of the best people on planet Earth.
She is phenomenal.
She is just a force, and I am here for it. I love every bit of it. That is really cool. And so you were also an enterprise marketing intern for Cisco, in which you created a social media action plan for Cisco Live, and that resulted in a total of 595,000 impressions during an event. I was really curious. Can you tell us, how were you able to increase impressions so significantly on social media?
Yeah, so it was interesting. When I came into this internship, I had no idea what to expect, especially working for such a big company as Cisco. A lot of people were like, okay, is it the food company you're working for? My grandma, for the longest time, thought I was interning for Costco, and I had to keep correcting her that I was working for Cisco. But Cisco is a really big technology company. And so a lot of what they struggle with is they sell to other big businesses. However, even if for people at big businesses, you're still selling to humans. And what they struggled with, especially on social media, is how can we still connect with people, even though they're at big corporations? You know, it's still a human to human connection that you need to connect with people. So really what I did during Cisco Live, it's one of their biggest events that they host. They bring in all their partners. It's a huge week-long event. And that was really my strategy, was figuring out, okay, despite the fact that we're such a big company and that we're trying to reach other big companies, how can we just connect as people and share information that somebody's going to resonate with? So that was really how it was done, of just creating that authentic content, something that people want to engage with and respond to. And it was a really fun project and a really, really fun internship. I loved interning there.
Yeah, I love that about authentic content. I think that's really important for the fraternity and sorority members that are listening right now, because it's all about being authentic. And, you know, I'm very familiar with Cisco. You know, you can start talking about their routers and switches and your eyes will start rolling back in your head. But the reality is that everybody from the CEO at Cisco on down is on social media, on LinkedIn, putting out videos to connect with the customer, because
Yeah,
you know, the routers and switches, forget it, you're going to lose me. But if you can just focus on the human contact and that relationship, then everything else becomes easier. And so
exactly.
kudos to Cisco for having that human connection
Yeah.
that even I see as somebody on the periphery. I really appreciate that about Cisco, and I think they've done a fantastic
And
job.
it really doesn't matter, to your point, it doesn't matter what we're selling at the end of the day. In my instance, we were selling routers and switches, but if you're a sorority or fraternity chapter, what's your product or experience that you're offering? It's not the actual thing that you're giving to your customers or members, but it's what's the why behind it. For me, it's I provide connection to small businesses so that they can focus on growing their small businesses into what they're dreaming it to be. For sorority and fraternity members, it could be, it's the connection with people. It's the why behind whatever you're selling. That's the story that people are going to resonate with, not just the packaged item that you're trying to hand over.
Yeah, I've heard that before. It's not what you do, it's why you do it, right?
Exactly.
So I think that's fantastic. I think hopefully every fraternity and sorority member really listens to what you just said, because it's incredibly important. If you missed it, hit rewind to go back and listen to that one more time, so that way you know exactly how to position yourself on social media. It's all about your why. So I'm wondering, did that internship lead to a full-time position with Cisco down the road? And what do you do for Cisco today?
Yeah, it absolutely did. So the unique thing about Cisco's internship program is I never interviewed for a full-time position there. They treat the entire internship like your interview. So it's kind of like a 12-week long interview process, which is really cool because you get a full taste of what the company looks like, what it might be if I were to work there full time. And really, it was by Labor Day weekend of my senior year of college, I was fortunate enough to have an offer and accepted it. So I had my senior year of college with a job lined up, which was fantastic. But now I'm their small business social lead. So it's been a really cool experience of working for such a big company, but creating experiences for these really small mom and pop shops, the coffee shops, and especially with this year with recovering from COVID, and a lot of these businesses had to pivot big time. And so it was really neat to kind of get a front row seat of that experience of recovery, resilience, but now they're looking ahead and they're looking at that next big thing. And it's really cool just to see that whole process playing out.
That's a great lesson for college students that are listening right now. Here you see a perfect example of how an internship led to a career, a full-time position, and all. So, I mean, really, you got to treat those internships like gold, because this is the opportunity for you to shine. If you do well, you will be hired. And obviously, I agree with their methodology, because, it's not a coincidence that a lot of the Greek university speakers first came onto this show and they did their thing. Ratings went through the roof, and guess what? They're now working at Greek University. So I fully embrace that model. I think it makes a lot of sense, and here's a perfect example on how it works. So kudos to you. I think that's amazing. And so, in March of 2020, it seemed that at that point you grew tired of pushing your dreams to the back burner out of fear that they would end up in failure. So, why should our audience embrace the process of failure?
Yeah, to be completely honest with you, entering corporate America was really tough for me. It's not, even though I had that internship and got a little taste of it, it's not really what I expected. When you graduate, you're going through a lot of big life changes, anyways. You're going from being on a college campus where you can just walk down the hall to see your friends. So you're figuring out a lot of different things. You're figuring out managing all of these relationships that you had, of learning how to budget and cook a decent meal, and actually forcing yourself to drive and go to the gym. It's a lot to take on. And then you add to the fact of joining this full-time job, and there's a lot of social norms, expectations when you're entering a corporate job. And for me, I felt like I had to fit in this box of these expectations that I thought had been placed on me, of okay, I am an adult. This is how I should act. I am a capable young professional. This is how a professional should act. And I've always been a big dreamer, but a lot of these dreams that I was having kind of just got pushed to the back burner because it didn't fit in this box of the expectations that I thought had been placed on me. It felt really vulnerable to kind of try out something new. I was more focused on, okay, let me do the right things. Let me stick to this so-called script that I thought I had, instead of venturing into new ideas, new opportunities. And part of the reason of that is I've always heard failure is not an option. But for me, the way I interpreted that is failure is not an option, so don't bother. So if I knew or thought I knew that something would end in failure, I wouldn't even bother dreaming about it, acting on it, because and I think for women especially, if we don't know the full, plot to the movie, we're not going to necessarily watch that. And so it was really tough for me of having these dreams, knowing that they kept coming back and bugging me, but I was too scared to act out on it because I was so afraid of failing. And really, it was in 2020, which, news alert, that year sucked. But however, a lot of those distractions that I had got taken away from me. So the daily commute of going into the office, going to the gym, all of these things that were really just filling my schedule but distracting me, those were taken away. And I really had a lot of time to just sit and reflect of, what do I want out of my life? What do I want out of my career, my personal goals? And it was on a particularly stressful day, really when all the craziness was just starting to hit. It was about early April. And I had two questions that kept popping in my head. It was why and for what? Why am I working so hard to impress these people? Why am I choosing this box and this script instead of venturing into something that I'm really passionate about? And what's even the point if I'm not pursuing something that makes me happy? Like, if I'm going to spend my whole career serving other people but not myself, what's the point of that? And so it was really in that moment where I decided that I need to accept the possibility of failure. I need to embrace it. And one of the dreams that had been sitting on the back burner for me was public speaking, ironically. And it was really in that moment where I decided, you know what, I realized a lot of other people face this, and I need to help them understand that failure is going to happen, but it's a matter of how can we change that idea about failure? When we hear failure, you think of all the negatives and the doom and gloom, but failure can be a really good thing. And it's something that it teaches us, it helps us pursue our goals. So it's a matter of shifting that script of not if we fail, but when we fail, how do we respond to it? And that's really how you achieve your goals, is knowing that failure is going to happen, but how do we bounce back after we fail? And how do we continue on going towards our goals?
Yeah, you and I are a lot alike in many different ways. Also, 2020 during the pandemic, I think our team and I, we sat down and we said, you know what, we have this free time. We're not speaking on college campuses. We're just on Zoom speaking to college students online. So now we have all this free time because there used to be all this travel time where we would go out, let's say to the West Coast and back. I mean, you're talking about a 3-day process to speak for an hour, right? And so now that we had this free time, we're like, let's write a book. And so we did. We wrote a book and we made the best of that time. And I'm really happy that we did. And the other thing is too, I went to school for accounting, and then I got into the field. I even got up to CFO, and I realized that accounting was kind of boring for me. Like I didn't feel fulfilled doing debits and credits. I have this creative streak to me, and there is no creativity in accounting. It's either a debit or a credit. That's it. There are no other options. And so, eventually what's funny is I started building websites. It was just like this hobby, and doing something called search engine optimization before there was such a thing as search engine optimization. I was just trying to get, whatever few clients I had to the top of Google organically. And it worked. And I started getting these checks from these big clients, and I showed them to my wife. I'm like, look at all this money. This was stuff I was doing at night and on the weekends while I was a CFO during the day. And it got to the point where I was making more money at night than I was during the day. And then at that point, I knew that it was time to make a switch. But I think to your point, the question was I happy? And I think when I honestly asked myself that question, the answer was no in accounting. But being my own a business owner and an entrepreneur, that was really exciting. And it was super exciting to get these big deals and close them for your own business. I
Yeah.
don't think there was anything more exciting than that. And kudos to you to want to work on public speaking. I think, no matter what you do at Cisco or anywhere else for that matter, public speaking is an amazing skill to have, and it's an important skill. And I wish that more college students would focus on that they would take a course at their college or university on public speaking, because no matter what it is that you do, it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're going to be selling yourself, and having
Yeah.
that skill of being able to speak to hundreds, if not thousands now, of people, I think that's a skill that you're just going to go right to the top if you can do that and do it well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to your point, it's a skill that can be applicable anywhere, even just venturing into this. On one hand, it's a side hustle for me. So that gives me something to talk about in interviews. But the fact that I have public speaking skills also helps me in interviews, because I find that sometimes just knowing how to sell what you do in a really good way is part of public speaking. So no matter what field you go into, having that public speaking skill, I would encourage all students, go past just your class presentations, find other ways to get up in front of a crowd, share your point of view, share something personal, be a little bit vulnerable. Even just testing that out is a fantastic skill. And I would argue college is the best place to start honing that skill.
100%. I agree. You could certainly do that at Kappa Delta, your chapter president or on exec board. You can certainly, have a discussion with your chapter. I think for me, that's kind of where it started. But then every city in America has a Rotary Club, for example. They're looking for speakers every week.
Yep.
Now, they're not going to pay you because they're broke and they're kind of a nonprofit trying to do good in their communities, but they're looking for speakers all the time. So if you're a college student and you have a message, whatever that message is, go check out your local Rotary Club. And I guarantee you, if you ask them, they will put you on the agenda. They will allow you to be a speaker, and, just tell them about college life today. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something that, anybody would want to listen to and understand. And maybe the other business owners that are in the crowd, that gives them ideas about their own business and how to make it better. So,
Yeah.
so
And
there
one
you
other
go.
piece of advice I would give too is, if you're thinking about doing that, the first step is asking. If you don't ask, the answer is always 100% of the time going to be no. So it's a matter of, if you ask and they say no, okay, well, it's the same answer. Then if you didn't, put yourself out there. But there's a chance that people could say yes. So it's just a matter of reaching out to classes, professors, organizations. If you have a desire to speak, the first step is you have to ask for it. And all they can say is yes or no. So it's a matter of just, you have to take that risk failure, but go after that goal.
I like that a lot. That's really good. Now, many of our listeners have chapter members that have some potential. I think we can all look around at our chapters and maybe see a future chapter president or a future chapter treasurer or whatever. You kind of see talent as they're coming in as new members. So, how can college fraternity and sorority members unlock the potential of the other members that are around them?
Yeah, it's funny. I was pretty much a wallflower my entire childhood. I loved being part of organizations, but I like to kind of just hang out, check things out. I was never one to, ask to be in the spotlight. That was just not who I was. And when my freshman year of college, I was starting to test out a lot of different organizations. You're trying to see what sticks, you're trying to meet people. And I got really involved with our American Marketing Association because I was a marketing major. And I attended all the meetings. I even did a little bit extra where I would go to their community service events. And it was the spring of my freshman year that the chapter president at the time, her name was Maggie, reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you considered running for a board position?" And when I saw that email, my first instinct was, heck no, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. And then I thought about it some more and I realized, okay, I really like this organization. I've been involved with it. I've seen what's going on for about 8 months or so now. And I took a risk and I said yes. And that one yes was the single best decision I made my entire college experience. That one yes led to me running on the board the next year, my sophomore year. My junior and senior year, I was president of the organization. And that never would have happened if she didn't recognize my potential and reach out to me. Because sometimes one thing that I've realized is it's not always the people standing in the front, raising their hands for an opportunity that have the best potential as leaders. It's the people that have been standing in the background, observing, watching. Sometimes you need to take a risk on those people, recognize their potential before they even see it themselves sometimes. And the really cool beauty about that is it helps unlock the potential of other people. It creates this positive ripple effect. Because Maggie saw that potential in me, it made me want to go find that in other people because I realized how much of a big leap in my mind it was for me to say yes to that opportunity. But also, I mean, that was a huge growth moment for me. And it's like, it set off my entire trajectory for college and even my career now. So it's a matter of, I remember that moment of when somebody saw me, it made me want to go find other people like that. So I think any fraternity, sorority member listening to this, look for those people in the background that have been around for a while that they may not see their potential yet, but you might see it. And it's a matter of you take a risk on them and let them know that you see their potential. And it's magic happens once you lock into other people's potential.
You explain it so well, and it's really so true. I was a volunteer for the fraternity for a while, for years, and went out to dinner with one of the board members, and we were just talking about fraternity like we do. And I said something, and then he immediately just looked at me and he said, "You're going to be the next executive director of the fraternity." And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." I'm like, "I didn't go to an Ivy League school, right? I went to the University at Buffalo, so I think you have the wrong person here." And no, he was convinced. And the reality is that I never saw myself in that light. It's a very humbling thing to be an executive director of any organization, let alone one that has 100,000 members, right? And so, I think it's his confidence in me that made me see myself in that light that I could do it. Whereas ordinarily, I would never have the confidence to make such a move, but his confidence in me let me believe that I could do it. And I think the same thing is true on a chapter level, is that ultimately you have a lot of chapter members that don't have that kind of confidence. But if the president or another exec board member says, "I see in you, dot, dot, dot," then all of a sudden you're going to sit up a little bit straighter in your chair and you're going to be like, wow, okay, if this person
Yeah.
believes it and he or she is in a leadership position, then obviously she or he, they must know something. And so I think that confidence is important. And I think we have to do more of that. And I think if we do, then ultimately we're going to get the right leaders in the right spots on the bus rather than just waiting until elections and then let's see what happens. Really it starts with the conversation and a little bit of mentoring, and then ultimately they are going to be ready to go. So the leaders really have to have some foresight into who the next generation of leaders are and start having that
Yeah.
conversation very early on.
Yep,
So
exactly.
that's awesome. That's really good. Now, what should chapters be posting? You're really good with social media. So I'm wondering, what should they be posting? Who should they be engaging with on social media if they want to grow their network and their influence on social media?
Yep. As I mentioned before, it's all about connection. It's about creating this experience. And the funny thing about social media is you can use it to filter everything and not really necessarily show a true side of you. But there's also another beautiful side of it where you can show who you actually are. You can be completely, authentic, whether you're running the handle for your chapter as a whole, painting that experience of what people in that organization might, the connections and friendships they might build, the community service events that you might be doing, or from a personal side, if you're trying to build your own network for just your own personal brand or getting a job one day, it's a matter of showing, your skills, your talents, but don't put filters across everything. Show that actual connection. People are looking for connection. And so it's a matter of just sharing what you're the most passionate about and sharing that with the world.
I love it. That's really good advice. Just yesterday, it's so funny. I just want to talk about LinkedIn for a moment because a lot of college students, they don't even have a LinkedIn account. They don't even have a LinkedIn profile. And I think they're missing the boat. I really, honestly, in my heart, believe that if you don't have a really good profile and an account on LinkedIn. Now, I'm to the extreme. I check LinkedIn every day. And so what happens is that, I check it all the time. And some other people that I'm interacting with, they might not check it for like 6 months, right? And then they log in, and then suddenly, like just yesterday, I got 2 testimonials on LinkedIn from 2 people that were customers. And like literally, I almost like broke down crying. It was so nice and so genuine and so heartfelt, some of the comments that they left for me in terms of testimonials that just happened last night. And so it really just blew me away. And they apologized for not sending it sooner, but they said, I'm only on LinkedIn once every like 6 months. So this was the first opportunity I had to leave that testimonial. But can you tell our audience, why is connecting and engaging on LinkedIn so important, and what can it do for your brand?
Yeah, my best advice to any undergrad is when it comes to LinkedIn, start early. Create it before you have the full profile built out. And don't wait until you've graduated to make a profile. College is the best time to test out content and showcase your work. A lot of people ask me, okay, well, if I don't really have a lot of work experience, I had some part-time jobs, but I don't have an internship or I don't have any, job that's going to relate to my career, what do I even post on LinkedIn? I would say, initially you can start connecting with people that whether it's students, professors, previous employers, even your parents' friends, if you know them, they might be working for a company that you want to work for one day. But then just start sharing your opinions on trending topics. So I was a marketing major. I love marketing and I love any new trends that are coming out about social media. So for example, I might post an article about how Instagram and Facebook just removed their like feature and you can opt out of likes. And I might share my own opinion on that. That kind of positions me as a thought leader and shows that, okay, Lauren knows what she's talking about and she's really passionate about this topic. Another way is just engaging with your connections. So if you were to share something on LinkedIn, I might just comment on it and say, great job, or this is a really cool project. And LinkedIn is the best place to brag about the work that you've done, whether it's community service or a class project that you've worked on, or maybe an organization that you're involved with in. LinkedIn is a really great place to share the work that you're doing. One thing that people always tell me, I don't have time for LinkedIn. I don't know what to post. And I always tell them just the 10-minute rule. Take 2 minutes to respond to connection requests. So anybody that's wanting to connect with you, my advice would be make sure you know them. One of my biggest pet peeves is if people connect with me, I prefer a personalized message. If I don't know you and you just send me a connection request, I probably won't accept it. And then so 2 minutes for responding to those, 2 minutes just to see updates from your connections. So scrolling on your feed, looking at what's going on, and then spend the next 8 minutes or so just figuring out ways to either improve your profile. Maybe you need to add a couple more bullets under what you've done for your schoolwork, or sharing an article, but it's an easy 10-minute. We all have 10 minutes in the day to go on, and that's a really good way to stay active. And on the back end and the more nerdy side of things, but the more active you are on LinkedIn, the more likely you are to show up to your connections. So when you are looking for that job, LinkedIn is going to prioritize and put you at the top of the feed instead of somebody that goes on every 6 months to a year. So the more active you are now, the more likely LinkedIn is going to put you in front of employers once you get closer to graduation.
That is great advice. I hope every college student listening really, really listens carefully to what Lauren is talking about. Everybody is an expert in something. Even if you're in college and you don't have a lot of work experience so far, so what? You're still an expert in something. You still have some major that you're trying to get. And ultimately, you can share posts about interesting articles in your industry. You can go and comment on other thought leaders on LinkedIn and give your opinion, or go into some of the groups and just chat and showcase what it is that you're an expert in. And people are going to notice that, I promise you. And Lauren is totally right. This is like a 10-minute ordeal. People think that I'm like on LinkedIn all day. No, I'm not. I have way too much work to do. So I'm on about 10 minutes, maybe even less, to be honest with you. Probably sometimes it's 7 or 8 minutes. And ultimately, what I do there is I'll usually maybe post an article or something that's going on at Greek University. And then I'll go through my feed and I will start commenting on some of the stories that other people are posting. That's it. And people think that I'm on there 24/7. Trust me, I am not. I don't have time for it. But that alone ends up getting me so many leads and so much visibility in LinkedIn that it literally gives me 10 times that in terms of opportunities for my business. So I think it's great strategies that you're talking about. I think it's really good. Now, we do love good food here at Fraternity Foodie, so I can't shy away. And you started talking about the creamery earlier, and I'm like now dying to go now, like NC State. I would definitely want to try that creamery. So what is your favorite restaurant in Raleigh, North Carolina?
So that's really tough. Raleigh has a lot of really good food. No matter like what kind of cuisine you like, there's a good restaurant. A couple of my favorites, Barcelona Wine Bar, because I love wine, but also I love tapas. So nothing better than splitting a bunch of food with your friends and getting a wine flight. So you don't have to choose one kind of wine. You can get a couple of different kinds of wine, which is really fun. Another awesome place is Y Hill, which it has a just gorgeous skyline view of Raleigh. It has a nice open patio, so really good summer spot. And they also have really good cocktails, so it's another good spot. But the creamery definitely tops all of it. I love some ice cream, so that's definitely my favorite.
I love it. You're always talking about wineries. You're talking about cocktails. We can definitely chill. So I got no problem with any of it. And if you're ever in the Nashville area, let me know. There's literally a winery right down the road from my home here. So we definitely beautiful views of Tennessee, which is really fun. So, all right. So if our listeners, if they want to book you to speak on their campus, or they want to connect with you on social media, where should our listeners go?
Yeah, so you guys can check out my website and reach me there at laurenbeane.com. If you want to follow me, you'll probably see a lot of pictures of my dog. On Instagram, it's lauren.beane. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just send me a message first, but I'm Lauren Beane on LinkedIn as well.
That's awesome. And Lauren spells her last name Beane, so make sure you go to the right place. And this has been a lot of fun, Lauren. I really think a lot of college students that are listening are really going to love this episode. You have all kinds of gold that's embedded within this interview. So go back and listen to it again. Make sure you share this. Make sure you like this interview and then share it with other college students that might have that fear of failure. I think that's really important for them to listen to. And what can I say? Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. This was a blast.
Awesome. All right. Very good. Well, thanks so much. Thank you to our listeners, and we hope to see you on another episode of Fraternity Foodie. Thanks so much. Bye for now.